The most expensive thing you'll ever own is a life that everyone's invited to, but no one is actually allowed to touch. And the ultimate tragedy of your success is that you have now become a ghost in the kingdom of your own making. Most men in your position would probably be described as connected. You have contacts and colleagues and family and maybe even a social standing that is estimable. But when you sit at a table of 10, you're the one who knows that you aren't really there. You're like a character in the story who's mastered the art of presence as a performance, using maybe your competence and your provision to buy space while simultaneously using them as a shield to keep people at a distance. And so you grew up in the silence of this unmapped home life. And because there was no father to serve as your first point of true connection, you learned that being part of the group was a skill that you had to fake rather than a state that you could simply inhabit. And so now you've spent decades drawing this map that gets everyone else exactly where they want to go, while you still remain solitary in your navigation, standing on a bridge of the ship while watching the party on the deck through a pair of binoculars. You are suffering from the loneliness of the provider, like a deep structural isolation that in essence tells you that you're only valuable as long as you're useful. And because you're so useful, no one ever thinks to ask you if you're okay. This profound sense of being an outsider on the inside is the primary obstacle I would propose to your realization of experiencing being a Binteger. Now, when I talk here about becoming a Binteger, I'm really describing the intentional movement of a person towards experiencing wholeness by aligning their internal reality with their external actions. It is the pursuit of being a whole and undivided individual. See, the world often tries to define integrity as this moral checklist, but for the Unmapped Map-Maker, it's better understood through its linguistic root, which is the word integer, a whole unit in math that is not fragmented into parts. So if you're projecting the image of the connected leader, while your internal world feels like a frozen wasteland of isolation, you're living this disintegrated life. You are a fraction that's pretending to be a whole. So becoming a Binteger means having the integrity to bridge the gap between your public presence and your private solitude, right? It means being an individual whose internal state of connection is in total alignment with their external social life. Now, the gateway to this alignment is the practice of intimacy, or intimacy, which is the very thing that your survival instinct has trained you to avoid in a crowd, right? You think that by staying as the observer, you're maintaining your power, but you're actually just maintaining your prison. See, in a crowded room, you're likely the one who maybe scans the perimeter, right, and manages the logistics and keeps the conversation light and moving. You're the social architect, but you never move into the building. Real intimacy requires the courage to stop managing the room and to start inhabiting that room. And for the unmapped, this feels like surrender of the only safety that you've ever known. You're terrified that if you let someone else see the lonely map maker behind the successful mask, they will now realize that you've been faking your confidence, perhaps since the day your father left. But the Binteger knows that intimacy is the only thing that can break the glass wall, right? Wholeness isn't about having 1,000 contacts. Wholeness is about having the integrity to be an individual who's actually present in the few connections that actually matter. Your current isolation is a direct biological legacy of the protection gap that you perhaps navigated as a child. In a mapped home, a father is the first crowd a child learns to navigate, right? Through the father, ideally, you learn that you can be seen, you can be challenged, and you can be supported without having to perform to belong. But without that anchor of a father who is there, you grew up believing that belonging was a reward for your utility. You decided that if you were the smartest and the funniest or the most capable one, people would then let you stay in the room. But because you bought your way in with your performances, you never truly felt like you belonged there in the first place. You feel more like a guest in your own life. And now as an adult, you're still paying this utility tax in every relationship that you're in. You're an unmapped map maker who doesn't really know how to just be with people because you were never shown that your being was enough. Integrity, like true structural wholeness, is the decision to stop paying for your seat at the table and to start realizing that you actually already own that chair. So I want you at this moment to be honest about the physical sensation of your loneliness, okay? Some of you might experience it as that tightness in your chest when maybe you're laughing at a joke that you don't really find funny, or maybe it's a strange sense that you feel of relief when you finally get into your car and you can stop being the guy that everyone expects you to be. This is what happens when your integrity is compromised by a social mask that you're wearing. You are an integer that has been split into a social version and a soul version. The social version has a great life, but the soul version is really starving. Integrity is a process of ending that split. It's the commitment to live a life where you're the same individual in the crowd as you are in the mirror. And when you align these two versions of yourself, the crowded room stops being a stage where you have to perform, and now it starts being a space where you can actually rest in who you truly are. Now, I can imagine some internal debate for some of you happening as we're reflecting on these ideas. You might be the person who's thinking, listen, Binny, if I stop managing the room, everything's going to fall apart. People rely on me to be the anchor or the host and the one who keeps things moving, right? Now, this is a classic distortion for those of us who've grown up unmapped. You've confused control with connection. So by managing everyone else's experience, you're actually preventing them from having a real experience with you. You're acting as a buffer between yourself and the world around you. A Binteger does not lose their leadership by being real. They actually deepen it. And when you have the integrity to be a whole individual who can sit in the room without needing to control it, you're here able to create a space where other people feel safe to be real as well. And your isolation isn't necessarily a byproduct of your responsibility. It's more so a byproduct of your refusal to be seen in the first place. Now, another thought that might be weighing on some of you is, I've tried to be open, and to let others in before, and people didn't really know what to do with that. They want more so the strong version of me, not the lonely version. Now, this is the painful part, I would say, of the late bloomer journey. See, you've trained the people in your life to expect a mask. And when you take that mask off, they might be confused at first. But you have to ask yourself, do you want to be respected for a lie? Or do you want to be loved for your truth? The Binteger chooses the truth every time because they know that respect without connection is just another form of isolation. Integrity means having the courage to retrain the people around you. It means that you're being an individual who is willing to endure a moment of social awkwardness for a lifetime of structural wholeness. So you're not ruining the mood by being real. You're finally introducing yourself to the people who thought they already knew you. That's what's happening there. Now, some of you might also be asking, how do I even join a crowd when I've spent like 3 decades learning how to just observe a crowd? Well, listen, the shift here starts with a radical commitment to internal alignment. So before you enter a room, you check with the Binteger inside of you, right? You ask, what am I actually feeling right now in this moment? So if you're tired, you don't walk in and perform high energy. If you're distracted, you don't fake total focus. You have the integrity to let your external presence match your internal state. This doesn't mean that you become a burden. It just means you become a person. And when you stop the performance, you'll find that the glass wall begins to dissolve now. You aren't watching a movie of a party anymore. You're actually at the party. You are an individual who is finally inhabiting their own coordinates, if you will. So, I would propose that there's a deep fear that if you drop the provider mask, you'll find out that there's really nothing underneath it that people actually want. You might be worrying that your own utility is the only reason people are sticking around you. Listen, I would say this is a lie that is born in the protection gap that you grew up in. The only way to find out if people love you for who you are is to stop giving them what you do. A Binteger is an individual whose value is inherent, not industrial. And when you stop managing, you're now giving people the chance to choose you. This is probably one of the most terrifying and rewarding parts of drawing your map. It's the transition from being a necessary tool to being a desired presence for others. Integrity is that bridge that takes you from being needed to being known. Think about the silence maybe of your father's absence. See, he wasn't there to show you how to be a man among men, right? Or how to be a person amongst people. He left a hole in your map where belonging should have been. And as a result, you've been trying to build belonging out of achievement. But listen, you can't achieve your way into someone's heart. You can only integrity your way into someone's heart. You have to be this undivided unit. You have to be an individual who is brave and courageous enough to sit in a crowded room and say, I'm here and I'm just like all of you. That simple act of common humanity is the most unmapped thing you can do. It's the ultimate rebellion against the isolation of your past. So listen, just take a moment and imagine with me, if you will, this life where you don't feel that post-social exhaustion. Imagine maybe leaving a dinner party or a meeting that was feeling energized by the connection rather than being drained by the performance. This is the promise of what it feels like to be a Binteger, a whole individual. When you align your internal and external worlds, you stop leaking energy into the mask. You have more resources for your life now because you aren't spending them all on your image that you're trying to keep up with. You're a whole individual who's finally present for their own existence. You aren't alone in the crowd anymore. You are now a part of the crowd. So the era of your successful isolation, let's bring that to a close, shall we? Because the cost of that season in your life has come too high. You can't be a Binteger while you're living as a ghost in your own home. Wholeness requires you to stop being an observer and to now start being a participant in your own life. It requires the integrity to admit that you are lonely and the courage to do something about it. So you can actually move from a state of managing your contacts to a state of having aligned connections with those who you care and love around you. The one is a job, and the other one is just an expression of joy. So I want you to look at the people who are in your life right now. They aren't your clients, they aren't your projects, or they aren't even your dependents. They're your community. But they can only be your community if you are actually in it. Integrity, the state of being an undivided individual, is the only way to join them. You don't need a new crowd. You just need a new way of being an individual amidst the crowd you already have. The thing is, you're already seen. You already belong. And you're already whole. You just needed to be reminded. So the substance of this truth is really meant to break that glass wall that has kept you lonely for so long. It's meant to show you that your independence is not a badge of honor, but it's a barrier to your heart. You are an unmapped map maker, and today you're finally coming in from the cold. You're an individual who is finally ready to be a part of that whole. You are pursuing to be a whole individual, a Binteger. But as we start to dismantle the isolation of the crowded room, there's often this experience where we run into a new problem. And that's the very independence that we've used to protect ourselves has now become its own kind of cage. We've been so independent for such a long time that we don't even know how to be free without being alone. In tomorrow's episode, I'm going to look at how independence has really become our prison, and I want to further explore why the greatest achievements we could do, like our self-reliance, could be the very thing that's keeping us from the freedom that we truly want. So in tomorrow's episode, come join me to see how we can move away from that cell-prison dynamic and experience more freedom in our existence. So join me then. Thank you for listening up to this point. I appreciate you guys wrestling with me on these ideas. If you do want to share some of your anecdotes or epiphanies or ideas, let me know down in the comments. I'll see you tomorrow.